Hello, everyone. Today we will we will review the series, the entire series of The Good Place. It had 4 seasons. Oh my God, what a fantastic show! I just have to say that off the hop. I should have, I guess, continued watching this sooner, but I'm glad I kind of waited till the whole show came to its conclusion to go back and rewatch it because it just makes it so much better to just watch it from beginning to end because then you're not missing anything. I find I find doing that with shows makes it easier anyway. At least with shorter shows. Some shows, with like 10 or 12 seasons, it might be a little difficult to take that all in at one time, but usually with a 3 or 4 season show, I find usually they do a better job of fitting everything in. So yeah, I was thoroughly pleased with this show. So it follows 4 characters. Well, actually, I shouldn't say 4. There's the 4 main ones that it follows are Eleanor Shellstrop, Tawny Al-Jamil, Jianyu, who we find out is actually Jason Mendoza, and God, why can't I think of his name now? Chidi Inaganye. I believe that's how you pronounce it. So, they all die around the same time, and they are sent to this place called the Good Place. And this, I wouldn't really call him a. Well, I mean, we find out that he's not who he says he is eventually, but this person, or I guess divine being sort of thing, accepts them into this place called the Good Place. So basically, the afterlife isn't heaven or hell like you would expect it to be. It's the good place and the bad place. So I guess it's kind of more of a, yeah, I suppose it's the same kind of concept, but a little bit different. So anyway, Eleanor is mistaken for a different Eleanor who helped overseas in a bunch of different things, from helping kids, etc., etc., sort of thing. I don't want to give too much away because, yeah, that would ruin the show, or ruin that part of it anyway. So, anyway, Eleanor knows that she's being mistaken for the wrong person, and the way she died was while retrieving margarita mix. There was a row of shopping carts that were careening her way that almost ran her over, and then somebody tried to save her, and in the attempt of saving her, she was hit by a truck advertising male enhancement drugs. So, probably not the highest of high deaths to get you into a place called the Good Place. So she realizes that she's not supposed to be there, so when she finds her soulmate Chidi, she reveals to him, "Oh my God, I'm not supposed to be here. I should be somewhere else." And then the neighborhood starts to sort of deteriorate around her. The things that she did, things that she does in the neighborhood, create these series of events that eventually a sinkhole starts in the neighborhood, and eventually she fesses up to Michael, who is the designer and architect of this neighborhood, that she is not supposed to be there. And then right near the end, when they are supposed to go to the actual bad place, she discovers that this is the bad place herself. And so Michael then reveals to her, yes, you are in the actual bad place. And I guess this was supposed to last, his experiment for this city, or, yeah, I guess technically it is a city, or design anyway, was supposed to last 1,000 years. He was supposed to get them to torture one another for 1,000 years in a different way, rather than just the normal ways of torture that they would do in the bad place, which included penis flattening, and there was a bunch of other ones. What was one of the other ones? Oh God. They had a whole bunch of different designs. That was just one that, yeah, yikes, it stuck out to me, I guess. Oh, pouring lava down people's throats, that was one. There were other ones too, but my God, like the creative ways of thinking up torture in this show were pretty insane. So anyhow, they find out it's a bad place, so Michael then says that he's going to attempt to do it one more time, and instead of putting them all together, he'll separate them, and then that's the way that he'll be able to slowly kind of build this up over 1,000 years, and eventually they'll meet, and then I guess maybe the last few hundred years or so, they'll kind of torture one another. But Eleanor continuously outsmarts Michael, and eventually finds out that it's a bad place no matter what. A couple times it's some of the other people. Once it was Jason. I think once it was Tahani, I do believe. So, yeah, it wasn't always Eleanor, but most of the times it was Eleanor. And I believe there was over 800 reboots by the time he was done. So then eventually Michael decides to actually help them get into the real good place. But the only way to get into the good place is to go through the bad place, through the portal, and then get to the judge. And she's been there since the beginning of time, and she takes all cases in and listens to them and then decides what the final ruling will be on everything. Because as time went on through the reboots, obviously Michael started to develop feelings for these humans, and he wanted to become a human himself, I guess. In a roundabout way. So he definitely started to develop feelings for the humans that he was torturing, and he decided to help them in the end and not actually send them to the bad place to be tortured for eternity. So the judge does listen to their case. She gives them all these tests that they have to do, and I don't want to ruin that part of the show, so please go watch this just to see that part. But yes, then they find out that the point system is flawed. They actually do get into the good place eventually through the help of Michael. But before that, they are sent back to Earth to the four of them. So Eleanor, Chidi, Tahani, and Jason are all sent back down to Earth. Michael meddles a little bit in it to get them all to meet on Earth so that they can learn the ethics lessons that Chidi was teaching them in the afterlife during all the reboots, but on Earth so they can start to become better people, so that they can show that they can gain points on Earth in order to become better people, and that people are actually capable of change. No matter how bad you think they are, they can become good. So it starts out good, and then Michael has to meddle a little bit to get them all to meet, and then eventually they do meet, and I guess it shows that they can gain enough points, so then they run an experiment with 4 new people, and 3 of those people end up getting enough points to become good because they were bad on Earth. So it was kind of chosen by Sean. The first 4 people, one of them ended up being a demon, so obviously they scrapped that and made Chidi one of the people that were in the experiment because he'd been completely rebooted. He had none of his memories of Eleanor, so he was with the other woman that he was with on Earth. That was who became his soulmate in this new reboot or new experiment to prove that people could become good. Unfortunately, one of them ended up becoming 1% badder than they were on Earth, and I can see why, because he didn't think anything he was doing was wrong, he thought he deserved to be in the best place, blah 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 blah, sort of thing, because that's what Eleanor ended up telling him, because Michael had this meltdown on the first day. even though it was faked, because he knew Eleanor was going to be the savior of this experiment and be able to help them finally prove that people could become better than they were before. So they do eventually get into the good place. I know this is kind of, the timelines are kind of all messed up on this, but anyhow, they do eventually get into the good place, and they are able to get into the points system and find out how it is flawed, because nobody has made it into the good place for over 500 years, so they know that something is wrong. Clearly, they believe the bad place has been tampering with the actual points system, but it just turns out that life has become far more complicated than it used to be, and things that would have gotten you good points in the past are now getting you bad points, because something as simple as picking out a tomato, because it was not naturally farmed, but pesticides were used, it gives you bad points because you're picking a tomato that was not naturally grown. So there you go. It's hard. Yeah, that just goes to show you how hard it is to actually make it into a place called the good place, based on the whole point system. So they come up with this idea that people can become better, and then eventually they just use it. It works. The judge rules in their favor because they proved that at the very last second, one of the new people that they introduced into the second experiment, with 4 brand new people minus Chidi, that these people could become better, because at the very last second, the guy who was bad the entire time was about to apologize to Chidi, and Michael says to the judge, this proves that this works because you can be bad, or how did he word it exactly? They might not change today, but that doesn't prove what they can do tomorrow. So the judge rules in their favor. Obviously, Sean's not happy about it, but eventually their system starts to work. They're kind of put into like this their own medium place. They're put through this series of tests, and then it kind of determines whether you go to the good place or the bad place based on how you do in these tests, I guess. Or was it? Maybe that wasn't right. I think it was more, you just kind of retake the tests until you pass them. Was that? I think that might have been the actual way that went. It was one of those 2 ways, anyhow. So, now that they're all in the good place, they get to live out an eternity, doing basically whatever they want. They go through, I don't know how many Jeremy Bearamys, because that was one of the descriptions in the that Michael gave, was that the timeline on Earth moves like one thing happens, then another thing happens, then another thing happens to you. But in the afterlife, it moves in a Jeremy Bearimy pattern, and that's just kind of the name it's spelled, because it moves in all these weird, intricate ways. So it was kind of interesting. And then there was one dot where it was, how did they describe it? It's where nothing happens at not all of the time. It was, such a weird description. It's hard to even remember what they said there. But anyhow, so Michael and Janet, who is his, I guess, assistant sort of thing, she gets rebooted hundreds of times. She becomes smart enough to create her own set of humans for the second experiment, and she also creates her own sort of rebound boyfriend, that Eleanor told her to create when she actually fell in love with one of the humans, Jason, in one of the reboots, and she actually ends up becoming capable of love for the humans, even though she's not really anything. She just sort of like a afterlife system, I guess, in some sort of way. And yeah, she definitely becomes way more advanced, and Derek becomes way more advanced because in the medium place, there's this woman named Mindy Sinclair, and they give her this gift when they're finally going to the good place of Derek and cocaine, because that's what Mindy Sinclair wanted. She wasn't 100% good. She wasn't 100% bad. She just was stuck in the middle of the afterlife, which would be horrible because everything was medium, right? It wasn't good or bad. You were just by yourself in your own spot, which would become lonely after a long period of time, especially how much time she spent there, because I don't know how many years she was there before Eleanor arrived. And yeah, she basically just kept to herself because that's the way she thought she wanted to live. But at the end of the show, it shows their last sort of missions. Tahani wanted to complete everything, wanted to learn everything that she could in the world. Jason just kind of lived out all of his video gaming fantasies, I guess. He finally did the perfect game of Madden, and then that was just when he realized that that was it. He was ready to walk through the door and become part of the universe. That was the final thing of the good place. Once you had completed everything you wanted to do and you were ready to finally pass on, you just walked through this door, and that was it. You just became part of the universe. So yeah, they get into the good place. Obviously, they go through many, many years completing what they want to do. Tahani is actually the only one who doesn't leave. She completes everything she wants to, and then she realizes after she's done her final party, she says, "Wait a minute, I don't want to stay here, but I also don't want to leave. I want to become an architect." So Michael grants that for her. When Jason goes to leave, he realizes that the little pendant, like medallion thing he made to put around Janet's neck, he loses it. So he actually sits there for 1,000 Baramies, 1,000 Jeremy Baramies, which I believe, I don't know exactly how the timeline worked, whether that's 1,000 years or I'm not really sure. It's a long, long time anyway to sit there. He waits for the actual Janet to come back and put it around her neck before he walks through the door. So technically, Chidi was the first one to leave. And I gotta say, the last episode was a bit of a tearjerker because even though this show was short, it was still, 4 years of these people being together. So I'm sure it wasn't easy, especially for some of the characters that spent more of the time together, right? And Tahani's final mission was to actually spend one good evening with her parents, and she ends up spending thousands with them. So she got what she wanted. So then she becomes an architect to design cities. Chidi finally realizes that it's his time to leave. Eleanor doesn't want him to, so she takes him on this wild trip sort of thing to kind of distract him from wanting to leave. He then says that he's decided to stay, but Eleanor feels guilty about letting him stay. She says she has to let him go. So he does eventually walk through the door. Eleanor's final mission was to actually make Michael into a real human being to live out the rest of his life. And he was so thrilled with that because when he went to walk through the door himself, that's all he wanted to do. He just wanted to be done because he said he didn't think it was fair that he was stuck there and that the rest of them got to leave and that he was no longer going to be with them. So he actually gets sent back down to Earth to live out the rest of his life as a human, however long that will be. And then Eleanor walks through the door. Actually, Jason walks through the door second after giving Janet the pendant and so forth. He follows Chidi through. And then Eleanor finally does walk through the door at the end. And that was another sad moment because Janet and her became very close. So yeah, the show, although it was a sad ending, it was also a happy ending because everybody eventually got what they wanted. So that's a good thing for everybody. I will say, though, the show definitely does teach you quite a few life lessons that you can always become a better person, even if you don't completely change to your core. You can always be nicer to people and treat people nicer. And yeah, I I know certain people never want to change, but you are capable of. I don't think you're capable of changing completely because obviously the way you were raised and the person you are will never 100% completely change, but you can make small changes to make yourself a better person, I would say. And I think this show definitely showed that you can make the changes necessary to become at least a better version of yourself. Maybe not 100% the person you wanted to be, but you can definitely make small changes in your life to become better. And I think that's the lesson I took away from the show anyway. Because I mean, some of the changes were significant, but a lot of them were just small changes in realizing that the life you are leading isn't really the life you wanted to lead, even though you thought it was. You can grow as a human being, definitely. Even if it takes you, even if you don't change until the afterlife, I guess you can still make changes in your life to become better. So there you go. It's quite a life lesson to take in, and I definitely learned some things from this show. Other than that, I have to give this series a 10 out of 10. It is a must-watch for anybody, and obviously it is filled with laughs from beginning to end. There are a lot of life lessons in this show, yes, but it is a funny show. If you've ever seen Ted Danson before, he was in Cheers, and he's also done some work in the show Fargo, which I think I might do a review of next now because it's such a good show. And I really like him as an actor. So if you've never seen Cheers, I would say go watch that. And also Kristen Bell, fantastic actress as well, actress. So yeah, I would say they were definitely the two main characters in the show were Ted Danson and well, I shouldn't say that. Michael and Eleanor were the two main characters played by Ted Danson and Kristen Bell. So yes, I can't think of anything right now off the top of my head that Kristen Bell's been in, but I've seen her in other stuff before. But yeah, definitely a top-notch show, a must-see. It's on Netflix. If you don't have Netflix, I highly recommend getting it. It's worth the money. And yeah, even just for this show, it would be worth it because I think this is one of the first things I actually started watching on Netflix. Actually, I think I watched it at my dad's house, a couple episodes on Netflix because he was watching it. And then, I don't know, maybe he got out of the show a little bit. I'm not sure. But, yeah. We were watching it down there, a couple episodes. And then, actually, it was his fiance that was watching it, Pam. And I guess he kind of got into it a little bit. And then he kind of fell out of it, I think. But anyhow, I'm going to say he should probably finish this show. That's what I'm going to say to him. Because, yeah, it was worth the watch. If he hasn't finished it, he should. But anyhow, yeah, 10 out of 10 for this show. That's my rating. So, I think that's everything I have to say. I think I've covered everything. For shows, I know these videos are a little bit longer, but that's actually perfect because there's so much to talk about. And I might not have even covered everything. I don't know. But I believe that I've covered everything that I wanted to for this show anyway without ruining too much. So, please like, share, and subscribe, and comment down below your thoughts on this show, if you've seen it. If not, please go watch it. I highly recommend it. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye for now.